Hi everyone, Heather here from Felt Mercantile, and we are back for part 2 of our campfire series with the s'mores and the sticks and the marshmallows and the little graham crackers. So this week I'll be showing you how to make that portion. If you notice, the fire is a bit different. I have been adjusting the pattern since last week. I have not finalized it yet, so I will not be releasing the pattern for the fire, but I will be posting the pattern for the s'mores on my Etsy shop. But I've decided for a very limited time, I'm going to make the finished product sets that I will be selling until I start to get too busy for the Christmas season, so I'll be posting that on my Etsy shop as well. So for the graham crackers, I used a thicker felt for this. I just like, it's kind of like less sewing for detail. If you use thicker pieces, I find. And as you can see, I get tangles all the time too. So if you're frustrated by tangles, you can always just cut them out if you don't have the patience. But I don't know, I consider them a challenge. Sometimes you just have to give in and give up though. Cut your losses, cut your thread. Hide your mistakes on the inside if you can. And I'm just going around here and making little dots by going over the same spot in one side out the other. Just a few times to just make a depression, and then I'm just carrying my thread over to the next spot underneath. And I did the two middle rows first, and then I started on the outside. So just do that one outside, and then you're going to carry your thread over to the far side. See, I did 3 rows, so now carry your thread over the far side. I couldn't get my needle through all the way to the place I wanted it. This piece was getting kind of thick at this point. So I just carried it over to the closest hole to where I wanted to start from, and then carried it over again. I actually looked up the size of graham crackers. Apparently they've shrunk over the years, but these squares here I made were 2.5 by 2.5 squares. And the last 4 spots, then I carried my thread over to the edge, just hiding the excess inside, and just did a whip stitch all along the outer edge that's in through the bottom, out through the top, over and over, all the way around. Try and keep your stitches as even as you can. Just has a nicer finished look. And when you get to the end, you can tie off your thread, and that's a graham cracker. So I made 2 of those. It has a nice base for our s'mores. So next would be the little chocolate bar. I had an idea for how I wanted to do this, but I kind of changed my mind a couple times as I was sewing. Usually when I'm making these videos, generally it's the first time that I've done this project. Like, I create a new thing every week, so I don't always know how it's going to turn out. But my favorite part of making these things is stopping at some point, always at some point throughout the project. I stop and I look and I'm like, my goodness, this is cute. Like, it's way cuter than I thought it was going to be. That's the whole fun of making these things, is not only do you feel accomplished because it is a lot of sewing, but you know, your kids or the kids you give them to love them, and it's just so fun to see something, you know, you literally just took a piece of flat material and turned it into something really, really awesome. So I really liked how this chocolate turned out. I think when I finished sewing it, it was that moment for me in this project where I'm like, darn, that's cute. So now I'm just sewing all of the 4 pieces together, just so they are attached. I decided that I didn't really want the stuffing to float around. I wanted to stuff each individual square on its own, so that's why I decided to sew on this base piece here. If I was to do this again, I would probably, you'll see in the next part where I sew the other middle line that I went through the top and up through the bottom and down through the top, which was just a lot easier, I think. And I like the finished line on the back more without folding the material. So next time I think I would do that. Yeah, so you see here, it's got that line on the bottom, which isn't bad, but I think I would do it this way in the future. So hide your stitch on the inside, and then you just go through the top of the piece and then up through the bottom of the piece. So I kind of liked that finished line a little bit better. And you'll notice that when I'm sewing these things, I use a really long thread. Really, it's just because I'm a lazy, which is funny because you end up getting more knots and snags and stuff when you have a longer thread. But so I guess it's not being lazy at all, but you know, I like to live vicariously and take that chance that I might not get a snag. For these here too, I just did, sometimes if I am using the long thread, I will do a little just reinforcing knot at the end of whatever I'm doing. And I don't know, for those of you who have been watching my videos for a while, like I don't know if you can tell, but I did change stuffing. I finally finished this massive bag that I bought from Walmart. And I don't mind that stuffing, but it's too springy, like, and it's just, it kind of stuffs strangely, like kind of clumpy. But I finally got a bag of the new stuff from Michael's. I'm here in Canada, and it's more, I guess it's kind of more cottony, so I really like how it stuffs because they do make harder pieces, so perhaps use the other polyfill for like larger pieces, especially because it's cheaper. But I don't know, I really enjoy this stuff better for the smaller pieces, something more cottony. This is just a smush chocolate. I literally just whip stitched around the whole edge and then just put a little bit in of filling in the inside. Now on to the marshmallows. The first one I made was just the plain whole marshmallow, so it doesn't have a hole in it for the stick. It's just, I guess, the pre-stick version of the marshmallow. And hide your knot in the inside, and you're just going to want to go around and whip stitch the one edge of the rectangle, the long edge, to the outside of the circle. And if you're cutting these pieces on your own, you'll have no idea how much I use a circumference calculator online. Just plug in the diameter of your circle, and it gives you the length of the circumference of the straight edged piece that you'll need to be sewing on the outside. So just a little tip. And for these here, notice I put my finger underneath and I held it flat because I just wanted to do a little whip stitch along the edge that was flatter, and so I didn't hold the pieces together while I was sewing. A lot of this is shaping things as you're going, especially the fire. That's why I haven't finalized the pattern for the fire or the logs. I keep having issues with the logs with the end pieces popping out. My kids are pretty rough on them. They're my little testers, but they ruin them pretty quickly. So I think you'll need to figure out a way to reinforce the end of the logs. That's why I'm taking orders on the, I rarely do finished pieces anymore, but I decided for a limited time I'm going to take them for the campfire because I really like the project and I want to really seal the pattern down and like be happy with a pattern that I can reproduce every time easily and explain easily before I put out the pattern for sale. I just with my patterns it comes with a link to the video, usually one of my Patreon videos with the further explanation. So I just haven't been explaining the fire very well. It's for natural type things. I find it so hard to create a pattern for them because they're just kind of fluid, like as you go. Even this stick, like I would suggest putting the stick on felt and then just cutting around the shape that you want. For some things it makes sense to have a pattern like the marshmallows because you know you need to be an exact size, but things like that stick. So my video cut out several times here guys, but I really just sewed the brown bit on the top with a whip stitch around the edge, and it had cut out again while I was filming the flat marshmallows, so it's basically exactly the same as whip stitch around the whole edge. Put a little bit of stuffing in there, but those are the 3 marshmallows. So this is what I was talking about. For the stick, I finally decided on pipe cleaners because I don't really like to use them in my pieces because when you wash the piece, they could become rusty over time. But, I mean, how often are you going to have to wash this stick? So, I don't mind using it for pieces that, you know, won't be really going in kids' mouths. But for this, I just think of it as on the right-hand side, I spun them counterclockwise, and on the left-hand side, counterclockwise, then the middle clockwise, and then just repeat that pattern until you get down like 3/4 of the way, or whatever, you know, and then you can twist them loosely to make it long, or you'll see in the second one I twisted it really tightly and made it shorter. You can always cut off the end pieces to make it whatever size you want. And then, yeah, here's where you would lay down. I just lay down that shape that I made on felt and cut out enough felt that it would just attach over top really tightly. And for this part here, I wanted to hide that middle connection bit, so I just wrapped it around and did some reinforcing stitches. All the way up the same as the bottom with both sides, and that's the finished little stick. So that was a really fun project. Like I said, I'm going to take some time refining that pattern, but I will put out the pattern for the s'mores shortly. And thank you so much for watching again, and this month is going to be a little hectic, so I may take a bit of time off, but if you don't see me, be sure that I will be back soon. Thanks for watching, guys, and we will see you very shortly. Bye.